All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a highly unorthodox internet-sourced theory that pretty much completely reimagines gravity and our entire cosmos. We're going to look really closely at a set of claims that challenge the very foundation of classical physics as we're all traditionally taught it. Now, to be clear, our goal today isn't to validate or debunk these claims. We are just here to neutrally explore the concepts being presented and try to understand this wildly unique perspective the speaker is bringing to the table. We've distilled their exact arguments to give us a clear, structured way to analyze this alternative worldview. Right out of the gate, the source material hits us with a pretty provocative question, directly challenging the scientific pioneers we all learn about in middle school. I mean, think about it. Who actually understands gravity better? Is it the inanimate apple that naturally falls from the tree? Is it the living birds that intuitively navigate the skies? Or is it Sir Isaac Newton? By framing the inquiry exactly like this, the speaker's instantly demanding that we rethink the nature of knowledge itself. Basically, they're asking if true understanding comes from intellectual observation or from innate physical experience. Moving into Section 1, Origins of Gravity, a New Perspective. So, we begin our deep dive into this theory with the speaker's intense, outright rejection of Western scientific historical dominance. The source material imparts a view that very bluntly critiques what the speaker terms Northern Europeans for essentially taking historical credit for the fundamental forces of nature. The speaker expresses this deep frustration with the whole historical narrative that elevates figures like Newton to the absolute unquestionable authorities on natural phenomena. In this worldview, attributing the so-called invention or primary comprehension of gravity to European historical figures is fundamentally flawed, mostly because it completely dismisses the natural world's inherent everyday relationship with these forces. That brings us to Section 2, Newton versus the birds. Who knows better? Here's where the speaker draws a really sharp contrast. On one hand, you've got Newton. According to the speaker, Mr. Newton merely put a label on gravity. He just called it by a name and, quote, did nothing else. The speaker actually actively mocks the idea that Newton should ever be considered the inventor of gravity. And then on the flip side, we have the birds. The source points out that birds have been interacting with gravity since the creations of lives and the creations of the world. So, the real crux of the argument is this tension between claiming you've mastered or invented a concept just by naming it versus nature, which has actively interacted with gravity since literally the dawn of creation. The speaker is making a profound, albeit very unconventional, philosophical distinction here. They're saying that labeling a phenomenon is just a superficial human construct. But physically experiencing and adapting to that phenomenon, well, that's true, authentic engagement. To the speaker, birds hold a way higher authority on the subject of gravity simply by existing and flying through it every single day. Let's look at Section 3, Filled with Matter, the Cosmos Model. Having completely torn down the historical legacy of Newton, the speaker then pivots to constructing their own alternative cosmological model. They explicitly refer to this space as the cosmos, and they make a very clear distinction that Westerners call it the universe. But what's absolutely vital to grasp here is the geometry the speaker insists upon. They visualize the cosmos strictly as a sphere. So actually, scratch the idea of an expanding, shapeless void. In their model, it is a very specific, contained, spherical entity. And this leads to a super fascinating redefinition. The speaker claims that inside the spherical cosmos, a complete vacuum just flat out does not exist. It is completely filled with matter. And because everything is filled with matter, the concept of zero gravity doesn't actually mean zero. The speaker argues that the term is meaningless in an absolute sense. Instead, what we call zero gravity is really just very small gravity. Now, you might be thinking, if there's no complete vacuum, what fills the spherical cosmos? And how does that dictate how it physically works? Which leads perfectly into Section 4, Gravity and Shape, Shaping the Cosmos. The speaker lays out this very specific, completely inescapable causal loop. Step 1, the cosmos is 100% filled with matter, leaving absolutely no empty space. Step 2, all of this matter is exactly what creates gravity. And Step 3, ultimately that generated gravity dictates the spherical shape of the cosmos itself. It's a totally self-contained mechanical cycle. Matter, gravity, and the geometric shape of reality all rely entirely on one another to exist. So, just to synthesize this whole alternative framework, these 3 points represent the foundational mechanics of the speaker's proposed reality. First, the cosmos must be sphere-shaped. Second, there is an absolute absence of a true vacuum. Matter is just omnipresent. And third, this omnipresent matter drives the gravitational forces that in turn actually sculpt that spherical shape. It's a cohesive alternative physics engine that operates entirely separate from standard classical mechanics. And finally, Section 5, Why It Matters, Analyzing Biases. Now, you might be sitting there wondering, why on earth are we analyzing this eccentric fringe theory so closely? Well, exploring these unconventional claims actually forces us to confront how we view the history of science and the authority we often just blindly hand over to those who simply name things. When we look at a theory that rejects everything from Western European historical dominance to the very existence of a vacuum, it kind of holds a mirror up to our own accepted truths. It's a great reminder that for centuries, humanity's understanding of reality has been shaped by whoever gets to write the history books and whoever gets to slap the definitive labels on the natural world around us. Which leaves us with this final, genuinely provocative thought to ponder. Does humanity's act of labeling nature actually mean we understand it better than the apple that falls or the bird that effortlessly flies? Does giving a name to a physical force equate to true mastery over it? Or are we all just observers, participating in a cosmos that has been operating perfectly fine without our labels since the creation of the world? I'll leave you to think about that one. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the fundamentals.